Scott, stop the car, shut the engine off, please. We saw really high crankcase pressure, so we stopped the car. I got oil smell, a lot of oil fumes in the cockpit. Car's off, sitting here right before 10. Okay, they're gonna come and get you.
We don't really know what it is to the time the engine builder opened the engine, but we think it's like upper end related. Like in our world, it's pretty much the top of the engine, what is maybe a piston, maybe a valve, like something was to do with the top of the engine. And we will know a little more tonight when the engine builder take the engine apart.
In the next week, team owner Scott Tucker, with advice from his staff, must make a critical decision. Which is greater? His determination to win the 2010 Rolex 24 at Daytona, or his desire to win it with a Ferrari? With both engines headed back to Steve Dinan's shop in Northern California, Level 5's Fontana test has ended. The final day, which was to include 12 hours on the track, now becomes focused on a different kind of racing. Racing to get in and out of the car as quickly as possible.
We try to be really quick in this kind of situation, because if we have to change the driver and just change tires, it will be only 25 seconds. Like we need to be under 25 seconds for sure.
Engineer Graham Taylor and 3 of the European drivers are running late. But with one of the world's top race drivers at the wheel, there is little concern about missing their flights. Jean Marchione and his Madison, Wisconsin-based crew are the last to leave. It will take 3 flights, a total of 14 hours, to get them home by 8 a.m. on Christmas Eve. But it is not the long journey or the anticipation of family gatherings that occupy their thoughts now. It is the memory of a fallen teammate. 1 year earlier, Level 5's lead technician, Eduardo Catamartori, was tragically killed. Eduardo, known for his sense of humor and outgoing nature, grew up not far from Fontana. Auto Club Speedway was his home track. This is where he earned his first victory in racing.
Eduardo, it's was a person like you. When you meet him, like 5 minutes after, you knew who he was. Like he wear his feeling on his sleeve, like it's like this American say you have. But he was really passionate about what he was doing, and he was like all the time in good spirits. Like a few months back, his father decided to put his ashes on this racetrack, and it's a little difficult part for me, you know, but it's because it was somebody who grew up through motorsport, like a big part with me, and for like he's blowing us away right now.
3 weeks before the race, Level 5 Motorsports arrives at an unusually frigid Daytona International Speedway for a final round of testing without the Ferrari engines.
The decision was made that we want to have a good result here. We were already committed to 2 cars, and the best way to do that was just to take the Ferrari out, set it on the shelf, and move forward with 2 BMW tried and true engine packages.
The reason you run a new motor in tests like that is you expect a failure with a brand new engine, and the goal is to identify what the weak link in the chain is, fix that, and then test it again and find the next weak link until you've increased the durability to the point where you think it's race worthy.
The Dyna BMW engines are the engines that we've run last year. They have been running in the series for 6 years, so they're very well developed. It's a good package. We proved that last year coming into the series and taking the car to the pole at several different places. And we're very pleased with them, and they're 24-hour proven.
She may not drive a race car, but the clear winner on this day is Mother Nature.
You know, it's unprecedented. It's snowing in Daytona. one of those things. Like I said, it's racing.
We really needed this test session to kind of get a feel for where we're going to be in the 24, but as you can see, everybody's just parked in the garage, so we can only do what we can do.
I've been here when there was ice on the track before and we couldn't go out right away, but that's the first time I've seen snow here.
The Fontana test settled one important issue, but did little to prepare the team for a 24-hour race with two BMW-powered cars. Behind the scenes, the concern is that by spending so much time testing the Ferraris, the ambitious and determined Scott Tucker has left team manager David Stone with an almost impossible task, and the weather isn't helping matters. For two established European drivers, the 3-day practice session is their only chance to acclimate themselves to a new team prior to race week. Sébastien Bourdais, a native of Le Mans, France, is a 4-time Champ Car World Series champion. He has 2 second-place finishes at Le Mans and won the total 24 Hours of Spa in 2002 with Christophe Bouchou.
I came twice here, in 05 and 06, and it was not the best experience ever, but the race is cool. I mean, it's one of these big classics that everybody wants to put on his resume, and I think it's, when you come here, you can feel the excitement and the fact that this one is not like any other, it's just like the big ones.
Lucas Luhr, a native of Germany, is a former Porsche factory driver and longtime teammate of Sascha Maassen in the American Le Mans Series. Lucas was the Grand Touring Class winner of the Rolex 24 in 2001 and has captured 3 GT titles at Le Mans. In a Daytona prototype, he won the pole at the 2006 Rolex 24 and finished third. 7 months earlier, at Le Mans, Lucas crashed his Audi R15 TDI into a tire wall during the 7th hour of the 24-hour race. The car could not continue. But David Stone, who worked with Lucas early in his career, knows such accidents have been few and far between.
Back then, I drove for him, and I think he wasn't really impressed by me because I was really young, like 19, 20 years old, and a little bit a wild boy, and didn't really listen to the team, what they were saying. But over the years, you learn, you get some more experience, and you get a little bit relaxed yourself. So he got Sascha Maassen and Emmanuel Collin, and of course I know both of them very well. So they said if I want to join them or join the team for racing. So I said, yeah, why not?
Lap times for the number 55 and 95 cars are among the fastest recorded during the practice sessions. But David Stone isn't sure what that means.
I think we were second quickest of the group that was here, and a lot goes on in practice times, official practice times, and you just never really know how that's going to translate when you get back here.
The team returns to Daytona as scheduled. There's no turning back. But the lingering question is, are they ready? Team manager David Stone approaches these final days of preparation with his usual dose of cautious optimism.
The best thing about being a young team that's considered, an underdog, I love that, because it's when people tend to underestimate you, and I would always be happier being underestimated by my competition because, they may overlook something themselves while they're not considering you.
As Level 5 enters the morning practice in preparation for the afternoon qualifying, the driver lineups for the race are set. Scott Tucker and Christophe Bouchou will drive both cars. The others will be divided according to height and size. Emmanuel Collard, Sascha Maassen, and Sébastien Bourdais will team up in the 55, the short car, while Ryan Hunter-Reay, Richard Westbrook, and Lucas Luhr will share the 95, the tall car. Grouping the drivers by body type makes it easier to find a compromise position for the pedals, seat, and steering wheel, which cannot be altered during the race. The only piece of equipment that can be easily adjusted during a driver change is the seat belt.
You have to make a compromise because every driver has something particular that he likes. One driver has a driving style that prefers a little bit more of a pushing car, or some other prefer to drive a loose car. And but then you have to find a car that suits everybody. This is not easy, and it has to be quick as well.
I think also that's a little bit the key, you know. If you have 3 guys on a car, they are really get along with each other well. I think then everything is a little easier, you know. You don't have to fight each other.
The drivers in the 55, on average, are older and more experienced. And with an accomplished mercenary assigned to lead the attack, it's clear this car is considered Level 5's primary weapon. The 3.5-mile road course combines the Tri-Oval Speedway and its 31-degree banking with a narrow but flat infield track and the tricky bus stop chicane.
It's a unique course. It's fast. There at the start-finish line, we're doing about 200, which is about the maximum speed that we do in the Daytona prototype. But the banking is unique, and you can gain or lose a lot of time on the entrance of that. So that is probably the most technical part of the course, the entries to both of the bankings, because of the speed that you can win or lose there.
Our top speed, lap time-wise, isn't the best yet, but this is only the second priority, because in this race we have to survive for 23 hours, and our car is good to do that.
Qualifying for the Rolex 24 is just 4.5 hours away. For engineers Graham Taylor and Jeff Brown, this is crunch time. They must precisely evaluate and make crucial adjustments to the 500 horsepower beasts on which their fortunes will ride. Firmly establish a positive rapport with the sometimes delicate egos who will clutch the reins for 24 hours, and most importantly, keep the cars out of trouble. For the 95, the race nearly ends before it begins. Because the Rolex 24 includes 2 competitive divisions, drivers of the faster Daytona prototype, or DP cars, must avoid entanglements with the slower Grand Touring, or GT cars. But as Lucas Luhr has been reminded, that is not always an easy task.
I just was in the infield, just coming out of the horseshoe, and there was a slower car to the right. I passed him, and then he turned in on me, and he hit my rear wheel, the right rear wheel. It spun me around, so and it's quite quick there, so I hit the guardrail. And I hope there's nothing, major damage on the car. I'm upset, and I'm, sad for the guys. They have to work hard now. So, but they're good guys. They're gonna fix it. It's just racing, Racing, some things happen which you're not expecting. That's it.
Jeff Brown has been around long enough to know the difference between reacting and overreacting.
So we're just going to go make sure it's all right.
I'm sorry, but if you get hit there, what you want to do? I mean,
nothing you can do. Don't worry about that.
The reason why you are here is because you are a pro. Okay?
And the initial diagnosis is encouraging.
The car's back in the garage. We're going to assess the damage. We're well stocked on spares. The Riley spares parts truck is here, so it won't be an issue getting it back together. The important thing will be to do it methodically, make sure the car is ready for the race or for the next session.
Let's prepare this car for the race. Don't cut any corners just to make qualifying that are going to bite us on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
So that's kind of our mentality. It doesn't look like, we'll see for sure, but the chassis didn't get bent or anything, so it's just replace the parts and away we go.
Sorry, Scott.
No, it's okay. Thanks. It should happen.
There. What you want to do?
The 95's mechanics have just 4 hours and 30 minutes from the time of the crash until the start of qualifying. As that time ticks away, it becomes less likely the car will be ready. As the 55 makes its final practice run of the day, Scott Tucker receives the final word on the 95. It needs more time to heal and will not be ready for him to drive in qualifying. but Jeff Brown remains upbeat and hopeful.
It looked a lot worse than it was. You know, you can hit one of these cars bad enough to bend the chassis, then you're in serious trouble. But, you know, the Riley's a strong car, and they design it so that when you hit something like that, it breaks off the suspension points rather than crushing the actual structure of the chassis. So it did its job.
As the 15-minute qualifying session unfolds, Christophe Bouchou and the 55 are frustrated. After 3 laps, it is in 12th position, the slowest car on the track.
One of the tricks of the qualifying strategy is to find a clean lap. And, you know, with everybody trying really hard, that's not always easy to do, even on a large, long track like Daytona.
By lap 6, the 55's best time has improved, but only to 8th position.
Don't worry, you got one more after this one. At least one more time after this one. Calm it all down and you can go again, don't worry.
With the pressure on, Christophe Bouchou produces a final lap of 1 minute, 41.463 seconds. He will start the Rolex 24 in 6th position.
Second flag. P6, Christophe, nice last lap. P6. I do my best, but to go as much as survive.
It's a good time. I mean, we had some problem this morning to find a good setup. I give my best, but the car was pushing, and also the traction exit of slower corner was not wonderful. So it is what it is. But I believe we can be happy of this time if we consider all the problem we have this morning, also with the 95. So it's not too bad. And of course, on a race of 24 hours, to start on the 3rd row doesn't mean nothing, you know, it's not an handicap.
The pole position goes to the number 10 car, a Ford Dallara owned by SunTrust Racing and driven by Italian Max Angelelli, a Rolex 24 winner in 2005. The second position will be occupied by another Ford, the number 60 car, driven by Brazilian Oswaldo Negri Jr. Both men recognized the significance of their positions, especially with rain in the forecast.
It's definitely a big advantage, being in the first row. And that is the beauty of the 24-hour, because you can't change the car for a rain, because it's a 24-hour race, so you can have rain and dry and rain again. So what you want to do is to set up the car for a sort of end of the race conditions, and we more or less know that it's going to be dry. So then you will see a lot of cars with a dry setup driving in the rain. That is going to be really difficult for all of us.
Obviously, being up front is a great advantage. Those cars in the wet, they lift quite a lot of water from the track, and it's just like driving, you know, through a cloud if you're way back.
Well after the start of the nighttime practice session and nearly 8 hours after it plowed into the tire wall, the 95 is back on the racetrack.
We had a problem with the installation of the flywheel, and the whole back half of the car had to come off. And in the end, we ended up losing about 10 or 15 minutes out of the final practice because of that. So clearly we wouldn't have made the qualifying, and we missed part of the practice. But we got out there and everything's fine.
The 95 turns in the 6th fastest time during the 2-hour session. It's even faster than its stablemate. But when it starts the Rolex 24 with Scott Tucker behind the wheel, the 95 will assume the 13th position in the 15-car Daytona prototype field.
It was extremely unfortunate for the 95 car to have its accident in the very first session yesterday, and that put not only them behind the 8 ball, it put the whole program, because Jeff had a set procedure that he was going to do, and I was going a slightly different way, and then we were going to come back and merge. And Scott was the worst benefactor from all of that, because he got such little time in the car. To squeeze him in before the race start and the qualifying, etc., has been extremely difficult to do.